Well, where do I begin? Spider-Man Homecoming was a surprising and essential film to join the MCU. The reasons are simple. For one, it's Spidey, and two, he's an integral part of the universe. His addition to Civil War was crazy. After I had seen his portrayal in that, I was excited to see his next appearance, and this film delivers. Marvel and Sony, they do get the credit too, knew how to implement the character into the 21st century, and they utilize it in interesting ways.
Spider-Man is the biggest Marvel character. He is the jewel in the crown. Such an amazing icon. He is a very different type of hero because he is quite simply the greatest superhero of all time.
So, as you know, Marvel and Sony's relationship has been rocky over the years, but in 2014, Amy Pascal, co-chairman of Sony Pictures, started to discuss plans for Marvel to produce a new trilogy of Spider-Man films, with Sony retaining creative control and distribution. I'm not going to go into full details because we'd be here forever, but in early 2015, Kevin Feige announced that Spidey was coming to the MCU, and Tom Holland was then cast in June of 2015. John Watts, who previous to this only had a small portfolio of movies, was the director of the film. It's surprising to me that they chose such a newcomer to handle a movie this big, but in the end he did an amazing job. Same goes for his work on the entire trilogy. The film's budget was around $175 million. The worldwide gross was estimated to be $880 million. Talk about profit. Let's move on to the visuals. The action pieces here look incredibly well crafted. My favorite has to be the ferry scene. It looks astonishing. Maybe a bit too much CG, but it's one of the movie's most memorable moments. The suit, although the same as what we saw in Civil War, works here. It's flashy for a Spidey suit, I know, but like I said in my Civil War review, Tony is his mentor. He built all of these gadgets for Peter, so it makes sense. I love the detailing of the suit. You can see each individual stitching, and although it looks like it's just been plastered onto Peter, it somehow feels real. Not to mention the Vulture's costume, it is really well put together, and it takes the absurdity of the comics and gives it a cool, realistic adaptation. The tie-in to the Avengers and the Chitauri was a smart idea, creating a way to bring in the technology used by Toomes to create his flying device. I still think Tom Holland was a perfect pick for Peter Parker. He comes across as a genuine and earnest guy. His skills in gymnastics is what solidified his role, and you can see his passion in becoming Peter Parker. This version of Peter is a spot-on interpretation of the classic 60s character. He's just as nerdy and sincere. Tom wasn't the first pick, however, as he was upon a lineup of various other actors. The final shortlist included actors like Asa Butterfield, Charlie Rowe, Charlie Plummer, Matt Lintz, and Judah Lewis. I'm glad Holland got the part. I think his take on the webhead is just what Marvel needed, and his portrayal appears to be getting better with age. The villain of the movie is Adrian Toomes, otherwise known as the Vulture. Once I heard the Vulture was going to be the main villain of Homecoming, I was excited. I've always thought that a cinematic fight between Spidey and the Vulture would be an awesome watch, and I wasn't wrong. However, saying that, I would have loved a battle between them flying past the New York high-rises. Just a thought. Toomes' depiction here is somewhat similar to the comics. He's a cold and cunning character that finds joy in robbery.
Business is good.
Although you do get to see his point of view within the film, finding out that Tony's Department of Damage Control bankrupts his company, creating resentment for the wealthy. The twist that he's Liz Allen's dad was crazy. It brings the safety of Peter's school life and the danger of Spider-Man's life together, and it completely throws Peter off. I love it. So Tony Stark makes his appearance in the film, and although it makes sense to have him here, a lot of the Marvel community are quite divided by his presence. It's probably not a shocker, but I enjoy it. I'll get into it more in my flaws section of the video, but RDJ is a key role in the story, and bringing his influential character into the film gives Peter the dedication to be a better hero.
If you're nothing without this suit, then you shouldn't have it.
Aunt May, played by Marissa Tomei, is a unique take on her comic book counterpart, and I think it plays well into the story. However, I liked the fact that Aunt May was old and vulnerable. It made Peter's responsibility to look after her all the more meaningful. I'm going to speed past these two, but MJ and Ned are wonderful additions to the film. I felt the friendship there through the screen. The rest of the school ensemble are really nice renditions of their comic book selves, and yes, even if they don't look exactly alike, they still hold the same values, which is what counts. Now for my favorite part of the video, the connection segment. There's a ton of Easter eggs and nods to the wider universe within this film, the biggest being Tony Stark, as he ties Spidey into the MCU perfectly. Other integral characters are Pepper Potts, who makes her return near the end, and more importantly, Happy Hogan, who is reluctantly a liaison between Tony and Peter. Apart from the more obvious references, the most interesting are actually linked to Spider-Man's comic background. We see many takes of his most iconic villains such as the Shocker, the Scorpion, the Vulture, and the Tinkerer. All of these were fun to see. However, the one I found the most intriguing was the Prowler, otherwise known as Aaron Davis, the uncle to Miles Morales.
I don't want those weapons in this neighborhood. I got a nephew who live here.
We're still waiting on Miles' introduction to the MCU, and although Tom Holland is still carrying the torch, I think it'll be soon. But this reference confirms that he exists in the universe, and that's very important. We get the first appearance of the Department of Damage Control, who later have a more pivotal role in No Way Home, and Wonder Man. Stan Lee's cameo is as entertaining as always.
Don't make me come down there, you punk!
And as for the post-credits scene, we get what seems to be a teaser paving the way for the Sinister Six. Now, I don't know about you, but I would love to see a Sinister Six movie featuring Tom Holland and his past rivalries. Implementing that into the MCU would be fantastic. Now, there's a few flaws I find in rewatching this film. Some say its dependency on Iron Man impacts what should be a standalone movie, but I somewhat disagree. We do get Iron Man here, and while his presence does feel like it reduces Spider-Man's self-reliance, Tony mostly pushes him to the sidelines, with Peter then becoming more independent throughout the film. The usage of Peter's powers was definitely something I wish was prioritized more. Especially his Spidey sense. We really didn't delve into that as much here. I know it's been done before countless times, but it's iconic, and I would have loved to have seen a scene similar to the way Sam Raimi handled his powers. What we don't get, which I was really sad about, was the vastness of New York City. Sam Raimi made New York feel enormous by the simple use of swinging, and man, we get none of it. Not really. Not as good or as practical as it is in Sam Raimi's films. And that was a massive letdown. If we just got a few scenes of him swinging by the city's high-rises with style, then this movie would have been a 10 out of 10. I'd like to know your thoughts on this film. It seems to be fairly divisive in some communities online, and I don't understand the hate myself, as it does get a whole lot right. I think the way they treat his return to the big screen is wise. They don't give us a retelling of the same origin story or a retread of the same characters. They give us something new to chew on, and that's the main reason this version feels so unique.